An authentic narration narrated to us by Zayd ibn Thabit. And I'm going to break the chain of, or the series of a hadith where I'm quoting to you the times the Prophet ﷺ would say, وَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ, just for the purpose of what today represents for me personally and for many of our attendees and the Muslim world hopefully as well. A year ago today, subhanAllah, we witnessed the destruction of what was seen at the time, and I still believe till this day, probably for many years to come, as one of the most vicious dictatorships that ever existed. It's up there with the Soviet Union, the Nazis, and similar fascist governments. And when he finally fell, and it was established that this dictator and his regime was no longer ruling Syria, it was a surreal moment for me personally. It took me I think 6 months to actually absorb it. Until this day, I still haven't fully understood the weight of it. It's difficult for, I think, a generation of people who were born into it, with maybe 20 or 35 years before their own birth, that being the norm of this ongoing this ongoing totalitarian government that knows nothing aside from what the KGB taught them, and the way in treating people as animals or as worse than animals. It was quite, and so on the day after it happened, very spontaneously people gathered in the masjid, and there was a lot of happiness, and you can see in faces of people who had never been to Syria at all, rejoicing in the fact that this zalim was taken, and there's always joy in seeing that. If you are fortunate in your life for Allah to show you the demolition or the removal of a dictator, of a zalim, an oppressor on earth, then it means for you, or it's reasons for you to praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to magnify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sing His praise as a way of showing gratitude and contemplating that which He offered you. And this hadith is just pointing, is a hadith that you're taught as a young Syrian, you're taught this hadith as a kid because it's meaningful to you. And what he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, قَالَ طُوبَى لِلشَّامِ, meaning good news, and khayr is coming the way of Sham. And Sham is not Syria. Sham is what today is Palestine, Urdun, Lebanon, Syria, western Iraq, northern Saudi Arabia, and northeast Egypt. Down the series of mountains, Al-Hijaz, down to where Medina and Mecca is. And this is historically known as the land that Sam or Shem ibn Nuh alayhi salam would live in. Historically known after that to be the land that Ibrahim alayhi salam established monotheism in it, and his children, both from Ismail and Ishaq, would live in and would practice their monotheism and protect it as the holy land, as the blessed land that on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will leave that land as Ard al-Mahshar, where people will go to be judged and to be moved to their final destinations. It has that importance. The Quran talks about it, الأرض التي باركنا حولها, to the land where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he said, طُوبَى لِلشَّامِ, and good news for Sham. So one of the Sahaba who are, these are people who are not from, they live in Medina. So فقال يا رسول الله ولما ذاك, and why is that? فقال ما تزال ملائكة الرحمن باسطة أجنحتها عليها إلى يوم القيامة. Because until the day of judgment, the angels of Ar-Rahman will continue to hover with their wings upon it until the day of judgment. And there is some degree in protection of it and in respect of this land that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has called the Ard Mubarakah, a blessed land. And this is not to toot my own horn or to make people who come from that part of the world feel better than others. But what it is for us as Muslims is a reminder that that area of the world has religious significance to it. So in order for our ummah as Muslims to find its way again, to find its footsteps again, to find its stance again, to be able to revive itself, revive its legacy again, then that part of the world has to find its identity again. It has to. If that part of the world continues to be ruled by dictators, continues to live under the rule of fascist totalitarian governments, then as an ummah we will continue to suffer. We will continue to find it difficult. But I believe in my heart that these masajid that we are in today, these masajid will produce the Salah ad-Din, Not just metaphorically, as in the person who will do it, but also literally. Salah ad-Din, as in the reform of the religion. The reform of the religion will be produced from these masajid that we are in here today. And even though I may not live long enough to see what that's going to look like, but I know it's going to come. You can mark my words. That's the masajid that we are in today, that we are building in today, that we are educating our children in today, and that they are going to be educating their children now in Sham, where they couldn't, by the way. I lived there for many years, and masajid closed after Isha, and we wouldn't dare stay in. I had to do all of my durus at home and in small gatherings where no one would know, and we would only allow certain people in because God forbid someone came in who wasn't amongst us, we could all end up in jail. But masajid that open again and are allowed to freely educate and teach and inspire their youth are the masajid that will produce the future Salah ad-Din. So may you find some solace in the fact that there are parts of the world now that are able to do that, and you are living in a part of the world where you're able to do that. And inshallah, with the efforts that are happening there and the efforts that happen here, a day will come where a generation that is similar to that generation will be produced, and the Holy Land will be freed again, and the Muslim Ummah will find its place amongst civilizations again, inshallah ta'ala. Qulu ameen. Inshallah, you'll be a part of that movement, you'll be a part of that contribution as Muslims, living here in the West. Don't belittle it, because it's very meaningful. يروي الإمام أحمد في مسنده بسند صحيح عن زيد بن ثابت رضي الله عنه قال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم طوبى للشام قلنا ولم ذاك فقال ما تزال ملائكة الرحمن باسطة أجنحتها عليها إلى يوم القيامة. صدق رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم.